Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast presented by Saint Church. My name's Caleb, and our hope is to help you study the Word of God every single day. Every day, we're uploading episodes onto Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We read a chapter of the Bible, we look at the context it was written in, and we see what it has to say for us today. Today, we're going to be doing just that by continuing on in our study through the book of Genesis by reading out of Genesis chapter 39. Today, we're going to be seeing the story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife, a moment in the story of Joseph where we see him live above reproach, even though he still has to deal with then consequences that are not because of anything he did. I don't know if you've ever wondered why bad things happen to good people or that kind of an idea. Well, this is a story we're going to see that on display as Joseph has to face consequences for something that he did not do. Now, before we dive into that really quick and really fast, if you're over on YouTube, take some time to subscribe and leave a like on the video. If you're on Apple or Spotify, take a moment to follow the podcast and consider leaving a rating and a review. 5 stars really is so appreciated. But with that being said, let's just jump right on in. Let's see what the Word of God has to say today. It says this: Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story: "The Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me, but as soon as I screamed for help, he left this cloak beside me and ran out of the house." When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. And that's the close of Genesis chapter 39. Now, let's lean into this and let's look at this story for just a minute, because it's a difficult one. It's one that has so many dynamics to it that we could end up honestly just being like, why is this good? So you got Joseph. Joseph's got a difficult life going on. Joseph has already been betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave to the Egyptians. This Egyptian master who has bought him, put him in charge of a lot of stuff, gave him authority over his household and all of his things. And, things are starting to look good. Yet when Joseph looks and his wife ends up saying, hey, I want to be with you. You should sleep with me. And he refuses because ultimately, and this is something good to note, because ultimately he does acknowledge the respect he has for his master. But in the end, he says, why would I sin against God? That he made a statement that was not just about his master, but was about his God, the God that he serves. You see, we have to acknowledge something. This is a little different in the story of Jacob. When we read the story of Jacob, and as we talked about a few chapters ago and a few episodes ago, we end up seeing the fact that it took a while for Jacob to choose to follow after God. Now, there was much time where he was looking and saying, Lord, if you do this, you do this, you do this, I will serve you. But in this case, we look at Joseph and we can see he just served the Lord. He honored God. He loved the Lord. And so he sought to do things well, even to the point that the law has not been given yet, but he knows this would be an unrighteous act, so he doesn't do it. That's an amazing thing. And so, because Joseph would not sin against God, because he would not do that, and because Potiphar's wife continues to insist upon this just unrighteous act of having this affair and all this stuff, he just runs away. He runs away from the moment when she tries to push for it once again and all of these different things. And as he runs away, he ends up still having to face the consequences. There is a power dynamic here. She is, the wife of his master. She ends up weaving this narrative. He's not going to have any way of defending himself in this case. Why would Potiphar listen to him over his wife and all these different things? And so he's put into prison. Yet once again, wherever Joseph goes, it's blessed. Why? Because God is with him. Because God cares about him still. So, really quick, this story, it's a pretty straightforward one, but what are we seeing happen? What are we seeing take place? We are seeing a good man, which again, being good is subjective. Being good is something that I think oftentimes we look and we say, well, I just want to be a good person. We see that Joseph, he's good because he's honoring God every step of the way. We see a man who's wanting to honor God every step of the way. Do that and do that well in the midst of difficult circumstances. And yet, the world of which he is in does not honor the ways of God, so he continuously is put into worse and worse situations, going from being the youngest in his household to being sold as a slave to now being put in prison. Yet it doesn't change his heart. It doesn't change the fact that he wants to honor God with his life and what he does. I'd imagine in some ways that for Joseph and everything he's gone through, he just looks and says, God, all I have is you, and I'm not giving that up. So friend, today I want to encourage you in this. Maybe you've done things to honor God before and it hasn't gone very good for you. Can I just encourage you with what might not be the best reality that's happened to a lot of people in the Bible, yet God is faithful. So if you have chosen to honor him, and things don't seem to be, oh my goodness, look how prosperous I am. Friend, I want to encourage you. God's still with you. God still has a plan, and he has a way that things are going to go forward. Paul says in Romans that God works all things together for good for those who love him, for those who love the Lord. You see, for us today, we have to recognize the fact that it says that he will work it. What does work take? It takes some time. It takes process. It takes progress. Joseph isn't in a good situation right now, but God can work with that. It might just take a little while. So friends, today, that's where we're at. God has good things ahead of you. God has good things in store for you. Yet it just might take some time, even though it might feel like you've gone from being the youngest in the household to being thrown in a pit, to being sold into slavery, into going to prison, and you're just like, why do things keep getting worse? You have a good God who's with you. Just seek to honor him more and more and more, and you never know how he's going to work this story out. Do it all for the glory of God. He has so much ahead of you. But with that being said, you guys, that's what I got for you today. We got a man who ran away from sin. He ran away from it the moment he could. We have the chance to do the same. Flee from sin and honor God. With that being said, if you got any questions, comment them down below. I'd love to dialogue with you a little bit about it. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. If you're on Spotify or Apple, man, take a second, leave a rating and a review. It would mean so much. 5 stars, genuinely. It helps people know this is worthwhile to check out, and it helps it to be able to get to more people. But with that being said, that's what I got for you guys today. So thanks for jumping on. Can't wait to see you tomorrow because we're taking time to study the Word of God every single day.